Good morning. It sure smells like a cover up. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist like Alex Jones to wonder why Donald Trump is freaking the F out whenever anyone asks questions about Jeff Epstein in the very strange and very sudden and not credible way in which the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, wants to shut it all down. Now, I think you know what I am talking about here. Donald Trump had a long association with the late so-called financier, Jeff Epstein, right? Jeff Epstein, the prep school math teacher turned money manager for some very wealthy and well-connected men, who also was indicted twice in connection with, and I've got to be really clear, convicted once and indicted a second time in connection with, as we found out the details later in a separate trial, he was indicted, convicted, and then indicted again in connection with the trafficking of young girls, right? Sex trafficking. And Donald Trump hung out with him before and during this whole time frame during which the actions took place, the exploitation. And here is my thumbnail from today showing Donald Trump trying to cross himself out of the story. Actually, that photo was from the White House yesterday, but it was when he was trying to distract us from the story. So let me say this. The theme of today, when it comes to the Epstein cover-up and Donald Trump's likely involvement as well as other powerful men, and we're talking about maybe in the hundreds, right? And I'll have the receipts here, is this, friends. The math ain't mathing. 2 times 2 does not equal 5. And I got more to explain here. Now, let's first look at this. I want to show you, before I show you Donald Trump freaking out, I need to remind you from when Ghislaine Maxwell was found guilty by a jury. I have a clip for you to remind you of that. And I believe it was in, I want to say 2020. So let's play this.
Tonight, after 6 days of deliberation, a jury found Ghislaine Maxwell guilty of 5 out of 6 federal charges, including sex trafficking of minors, which is the most serious and carries up to 40 years behind bars.
The road to justice has been far too long. But today, justice has been done.
Throughout the 3-week trial, prosecutors calling 24 witnesses. The heart of their case, 4 women who say they were recruited, groomed, and lured by Maxwell when they were teenagers so they could be sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein. The prosecution calling Maxwell Epstein's partner in crime, saying Epstein was able to sexually abuse young girls because Maxwell was the key to the whole operation. Jurors were reminded that she lived with him for years and was even referred to as the lady of the house. Prosecutors tying the pair by showing pictures of them together throughout the years, adding Maxwell received more than $30 million from Epstein during the years her alleged crimes were committed. The defense trying to discredit the 4 women, questioning their memory, telling jurors they were coerced by attorneys and motivated by money. Epstein took his own life behind bars in 2019, but his presence looming over the courtroom. The defense reminded the jury to separate Maxwell from the disgraced financier, saying Ghislaine Maxwell is not Jeffrey Epstein. Adding she's been tried here for being with Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe that was the biggest mistake of her life, but that was not a crime. The jury felt otherwise, and the crimes they deemed her guilty of tonight could leave the 60-year-old in prison for the rest of her life. Maxwell was taken directly back to prison. She'll be...
Okay, it was in 2021, in December of 2021, when the jury found her guilty for sex trafficking of minors and other offenses. Now, she was sentenced a year later to 20 years in prison. So I'm just reminding you of this, right? And now I want to remind you of something else. And this is jaw-dropping, okay? So I want to remind you that a year ago, in 2024, we had, here we go. I'm just going to share this with you. A year ago, we had evidence. We had a lawsuit brought by Virginia Giuffre. And unfortunately, she recently committed suicide. We do not have her around to discuss this further. By the way, there's a dispute now over her estate, and her brother and sister-in-law are saying that that the relationship that she was in with her ex-husband that began when she escaped from the trafficking of Jeff Epstein, that it was a very abusive relationship, which, if true, is not surprising given her history of abuse, and that the reason for her suicide was in connection with that. So I don't know the full story on that, but we do know for sure, without question, that this woman was tormented for life because of being a victim of trafficking as a child. So I want to share with you from a year ago details from an interview with the journalist from the Miami Herald, who is now, you're seeing her again talking about this. And I want you to look at this because she talks about what appears to be the client list that she at the Miami Herald was trying to get. This is from last summer. Let's play it.
Tons of pages of court documents tied to the late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have been made public as part of a settled lawsuit involving one of his victims. The records detail Epstein's sexual abuse and trafficking of underage girls and include the names of 150 people who were in contact with him. The magnitude of his sex trafficking operation was first brought to light by Miami Herald investigative reporter Julie K. Brown, who joins us now. She is author of the book Perversion of Justice, the Jeffrey Epstein Story. Thank you for being with us, Julie. And as we mentioned, hundreds of documents have been released over the last 2 weeks, which are part of this defamation lawsuit filed by Epstein victim Virginia Giuffre. And there are names of previously associated people, people associated with Epstein, such as Prince Andrew, former Presidents Donald Trump, Bill Clinton. They're mentioned in these court documents, but there's little new information outside of what was already known to the public. What should we make of what's been released?
Well, remember, this has been a long process. We first sued for these records over 5 years ago, and they have been released on a rolling basis. And I think you have to look at the total picture here of his sex trafficking operation, and that's what we were getting at. In the beginning, when we first started getting the documents, we knew very little other than the fact that he had abused a lot of young girls in Palm Beach. Now, as a result of all these records being released, we know that his operation went far beyond Palm Beach. In fact, was an international sex trafficking operation.
Well, to your point, the documents certainly confirm the scale, the magnitude of his sex trafficking ring and his powerful social network. How do the documents add new insights, more dimension to the reporting that you've been doing for years?
Well, I think it also sheds more light on the criminal justice system. We know that this is an operation that he could not have run all by himself. And as of right now, we only have one person paying the price for this crime. We know that there were other people, although these documents don't implicate anyone directly, we know that some people have been identified as having sex with some of these girls. It certainly warrants more investigation by the federal authorities.
You spoke recently with two of Epstein's victims who said that anyone who would have visited any of his homes would certainly have been aware of his depravity. Tell me more about that and why that's significant.
It's significant because these victims, They want justice. They know that this is a crime that a lot of people were involved in. And for them, just having one person arrested isn't enough. They want the truth. They want the other people brought to justice. I mean, he had pilots, he had assistants, he had business people who were helping him. And so the question for them is, why haven't some of those people been looked at, or at least been asked to provide more information about his operation?
I want to ask you about something else, in that a federal judge denied the motion by the Miami Herald to make public a master list of Epstein's so-called J Does. These are...
Okay, guys, listen up right now. The Miami Herald, where Julie K. Brown works, sued to get this list of the J Does.
People who have been connected to him, the names of those folks, except the victims. What's the value in making those names public when the accusations and the documents are salacious yet largely unproven?
Well, we still need to know who some of these people are. The documents that we received still have redactions in them. For example, there is a deposition by one of the victims where she said she had was forced to have sex with two high-profile politicians.
I'm sorry. I thought it was just when I was recording this, I didn't know it would be picking up me talking to the dog. Okay, so I'm removing this now. But the point is, in January of 2024, when these documents came out and Julie K. Brown was on PBS NewsHour, the bottom line here is that there are names that were redacted. And this is what I think people are talking about when they talk maybe about the client list. And I think you should remember that we're not just talking about Pam Bondi not actually pursuing this. We're also talking about Bill Barr, who was the Attorney General, who you may remember visited Jeffrey Epstein in prison before he died. And we also had Merrick Garland. And now we have Pam Bondi. So this is a bipartisan issue. And you may say, Jen, you started out by saying you don't have to be Alex Jones to think this is a cover-up. So you might be wondering, why am I talking about this? Am I a conspiracy theorist? Why would it be? You know, people often say this, if there were charges to be brought, they would have been brought. You know, why wouldn't Merrick Garland have done it? Merrick Garland aside, if you remember, the people involved here were supposedly very high-profile guys. We're talking about former President Bill Clinton flying on this plane, right? We are talking about allegations we already know about Prince Andrew having to settle out of court. We're talking about some of the world's most powerful men who might be implicated. And the question is, why not release those names? So the downside in releasing the names is these men would then have to come forward and say, listen, I hung out with this guy, but that's not a crime. I didn't do anything, right? And my view is let it all come out, because let them explain themselves, right? No one is accusing them. If these folks in court documents are saying these men were involved, they can answer to that, right? This is pretty normal. Normally, victims' names are protected, not people who are accused under oath statements. So I'm not seeing why that shouldn't come out. But now, I was giving you some of the background to remind you. And here's why I'm saying the math isn't mathing. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for 20 years for trafficking children to Jeffrey Epstein. There's apparently a list of at least 150 J Does who also were either involved in trafficking directly or themselves directly with these girls or participated. Now, in some way, right? And maybe they were just around, or maybe they were never there. I don't know, but there's that list. The math isn't mathing that there were over 1,000 victims, and somehow Jeff Epstein was the only one involved with them. I am not buying it. And let's look at how upset Donald Trump got yesterday at a cabinet meeting. I mean, this whole cabinet meeting was off the rails, but I need to show you first what he had to say when a reporter asked Pam Bondi, what's going on with the Epstein video? What's going on with the Epstein client list? Let's play that.
Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for an American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the staff?
Yeah, sure. If
Hey,
I
Pam,
could,
could I just interrupt for
Sure.
1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively, the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So
Okay. First of all, what did that video show? It was a hallway camera, but the two doors, and it sort of points to like a front door kind of, or some steps. And on the right, if you look at this, there are these two doors, but those weren't Jeff Epstein's prison cells. I was not aware of that until I heard the same Julie K. Brown on television last night, first of all. Second of all, if it's really true that they reset the tape every night and there's always a minute missing, and it's always been the same minute, exactly at the same time, wouldn't that give them a minute to do all kinds of crazy things? I'm not saying that's kind of nuts. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying it doesn't, number one, wasn't a view of his prison cell. Number two, how does it conclusively show that he committed suicide? I believe that he did. I believe that he wasn't watched, but others may feel otherwise. Now, there's more, right? I'm going to now for a moment move off of the Jeff Epstein topic and talk to you about, well, let me, before I do that, Donald Trump was using the typical Darvo tactic, right? When someone feels like they're being under attack, this is what people often who are gaslighters or abusers, when they are the offender and someone accuses them of something, they often do this thing called Darvo. And so I think you've probably heard of Darvo, right? And Darvo stands for deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. So his first way, he got very defensive. The first thing is deny that this is important, or for him, deny is distract. Like, why are you even talking about this, right? And attacking right there. Reverse, victim, and offender. The victims here, are the women and the young girls who were trafficked. And the offender here, and the public who has the right to know, the offender here is the White House, right, for not giving us the information, or more so, Donald's acting more like he's an offender. Why are you talking about this? And this is how one of his tactics always you ask a question because they made a promise and you're following up on it. And he is now making you the problem. Okay. So what did he, and he said it was so important to be talking about so many other things. What did he spend a vast chunk of the cabinet meeting talking about? Gold leaf. Gold leaf. Whether you need to hear this, it's insane.
The room, a nice color, beige color, and it's been really something. The only question is, will I gold leaf the corners? You could maybe tell me my cabinet could take a vote. You see the top line moldings, and the only question is, do you gold leaf it? Because you can't paint it. If you paint it, it won't look good because they've never found a paint that looks like gold. You see that in the Oval Office. They've tried for years and years. Somebody could become very wealthy, but they've never found a paint that looks like gold. So painting it is easy, but it won't look right. And the question is whether or not we should gold leaf it. Linda, do you have an opinion?
I gold leaf it.
You like it the way?
No, I gold leaf it.
You'd gold leaf it?
Yeah.
Who would?
Okay. We are cutting healthcare, shutting down hospitals. Apparently, we don't have enough money to fund FEMA, according to this total nut job. And this wacko is talking about using taxpayer money to gold leaf the corners of the trim on the ceiling. This man is so unself-aware, so entitled, and utterly wacko. But there's more, okay? And by the way, I've got a bunch of other stuff that is not mathing. But before I get to that, I want to finish out on what a terrible job Donald Trump is doing and how he truly appears to not only not know what's going on in his own administration, not know how to read people like Vladimir Putin, and not care that he doesn't know. So first, I want to start with this. You may have heard that on Monday night, somehow the military aid to Ukraine was cut off, was paused. And it's come out since yesterday's cabinet meeting that it was Pete Hegseth who did this. Now, there's conflicting stories in the news that either Pete did this without telling the White House, or Donald Trump just forgot or is lying and doesn't remember that he authorized it. So let's listen to what he said yesterday at the cabinet meeting.
Along with China very well.
Mr. President, you have sent more weapons to Ukraine, as you said last night. Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We wanted to put defensive weapons because
I may have the timing a little-ish wrong, right? I think the pause was last week. I thought there might have been a second pause on Monday, but at any rate, let's start this again.
we're getting along with China very well.
Mr. President, you have sent more weapons to Ukraine, as you said last night. Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We wanted to put defensive weapons because Putin is not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
I think that's a question for the
Go ahead.
Mr.
Yeah.
Who ordered the pause? I don't know. Why don't you tell me? Really? Really? And there is more. Speaking of not knowing what's going on, I guess the answer to every question that Donald Trump doesn't know is going to be this. Ask John. Let's watch this.
President, the Ukrainians have asked the International Court to go after Russia for using toxic chemicals in the fight. Germany and Germany and the Netherlands have had intelligence saying that. What does U.S. intelligence believe, and what do you believe about the use of chemical weapons? And would you agree that that's a case for the court?
Well, I'd ask John maybe to discuss it if you'd like, John.
Well, Mr. President, obviously chemical weapons, if it's documented and its use, it's illegal. It's against all international.
Ask John. Okay. Cool. So one last thing on that meeting. Not only is Donald Trump now alienating Elon Musk, he is now going to be pissing off Vladimir Putin, because after all this time, Donald Trump is now realizing Putin can't be trusted? Or is Donald Trump just finally dropping the pretense because he doesn't have that self-control? This should get interesting. Let me play it.
Oh, we get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
Do you want to sanction him? Lindsey Graham has a sanctions bill on Russia. Do you want him to move
I'm
that
looking
bill?
at it, yeah, no, I'm looking. The Senate is passing and passed a very, very tough sanctions, but yeah, I'm looking at
Can
it.
you sign that?
It's
Okay. So he's only angry at Putin because Putin maybe made him promises that he's not living up to, because he's now only realizing that Putin nods and says, sure, Donald, but his whole goal is to take over all of Ukraine. He's now only realizing that now. He doesn't seem to care about Putin, about all these people falling out of windows, being poisoned by Putin's regime. He only cares that, I think now, because Donald Trump really wants that Nobel Peace Prize. And I don't think he's going to get it for the bombing of Iran, which he claims ended that conflict between Israel and Iran. I don't think he's going to get it for that, especially because he was putting the bomb Iran videos up. You might remember that, sung to the tune of Barbara Ann from the Beach Boys. Okay, so now he's hoping maybe he can end the war that Russia brought against Ukraine, and Putin's getting in the way of that. Keep your eyes on that. I wonder how that relationship breakup is going to go. Okay, so let's pivot to some aspects of more on the math ain't mathing. Okay, this is going to be, let's start first with Sean Duffy, who is Secretary of Transportation, who, like other people in the Trump administration, has very little experience in the job he's being given and seems to hate Americans. Let me play what he had to say on Fox News.
Ask you about this, and it's crime in transit. So felony assaults in transit have skyrocketed as of May of this year, up 19% from May of last year, and up 66% from 2019. Talk to us about your thoughts. We have a statement from MTA that said, look, subway crime is down, ridership's up, congestion pricing is working, and we look forward to the secretary wrapping his head around the facts. What say you, sir, about how MTA is approaching their skyrocketing crime?
Also notice that he's got a lot of fake tan going on his face, very orangey and Donald looking.
I'm laughing, but it's not funny. So if you include the pickpocketers in those stats, yes, pickpocketers might have gone down, but assaults have gone up, to your point, Emily, by 66% since 2019. It's dangerous to ride the subway in New York. Yes. And again, if you're Kathy Hochul, the governor, or if you're MTA, you don't ride the subway. This is a war on middle Americans, working Americans who have to ride the subway. And these people don't seem to want to make it safe. And so it's very simple. Our point is, listen, if you want the federal government to participate in funding your subway system, your bus system, make it safe so people and families can get on and make sure they're not going to have their lives threatened, their health threatened when they ride the subway, because MTA is, by the way, is the organization that runs the subway in New York. They're not willing to fight crime like they should. By the way, when they talk about congestion pricing, yeah, when they say it's working because they're raising money. That's why they say it's working. Right. But congestion is horrible still in the city. That's because they're taking roads for buses and for cars, and they're making them bike lanes. So when you take away lanes, you get more congestion. And then they complain about congestion. It's just stupid liberals with stupid policies that impact the lives of New York.
Stupid liberals with stupid policies that impact the lives of New Yorkers. Listen to this.
And again, if MTA or
Stupid liberals with stupid policies. Sean, the math ain't mathing. I'm sorry. Here we go. Mark D. Levine, who is borough president of Manhattan, which is an elected position in New York, and it advises the mayor of New York. Here's the data. Crimes per 1 million mass transit trips, because a lot of people are on the subway. In New York, 1.3 crimes per 1 million trips. Miami has 2.6, and whoa, Dallas, 38 crimes, okay, for mass transit trips. Now, of course, it has to account for these being reported and so on, but I got to tell you, it's really easy to report crime in New York. So we're talking about a magnitude so much greater in Dallas, Texas. And so his blaming liberals and liberal ideas for crime doesn't add up. As I like to say, as we all like to say, the math ain't mathing. Now, I got another math ain't mathing story, and this is back to the whole trying to blame people on Medicaid, claim that they're not working. So now the Trump administration is trying to take people who are on Medicare, on Medicaid and working, right? They're on Medicaid because they don't make enough money in their jobs and their employers don't provide health insurance. What does she want to do with them? Well, people on Medicaid in general, the numbers she gives appear that she wants to take everyone on Medicaid, including children, and give them jobs in the fields, picking food that undocumented people used to come to this country to do. Let's listen to her. And once again, I will explain why the math ain't mathing on the other side of this clip.
I can't underscore enough. There will be no amnesty. The mass deportations continue, but in a strategic way, and we move the workforce towards automation and 100% American participation, which again, with 34 million people, able-bodied adults on Medicaid, we should be able to do that fairly quickly. Thank you.
Okay. How is the math not mathing, right? She's saying there are all these able-bodied people on Medicaid. Well, and she says there are 35 million. So let's look at these numbers. Okay. So the total number of people enrolled in Medicaid and CHIP in total, 78.6 million. Fine. Of them, 40 million of them are adults. Great. I'm trying to get to her 35 million. Then we also know that 26 million, so I'm not sure where she's getting that 35 million, are working age. So if she's trying to throw in 10 million more, I'm not sure where she's getting them, right? But okay, maybe she's trying to get some children and throw them in. So this is this chart we have looked at before. 26 million people are between the ages of 19 and 64. Maybe she's trying to find the people over 64. Maybe she's trying to get, 10 million of them from grandma, put grandma in the fields because she's not working, even though she's retired. Okay, so people between the age of 19 and 64, there are 26 million of them. Somehow she wants to take 35 million people and put them in the fields to pick vegetables and fruit. I guess you'll have to move from places like Wisconsin to California to do that, but okay. So of these people, there are 60, as you know, 64% of them are actually working either full-time or part-time. So that's 16.6 million. Now you only have 10 million left. Who are they? Well, 12% are caregiving. So I guess moms who are with their kids will have to abandon their kids and go off into the fields or just strap that baby on their back and go do that. Others actually have disabilities. That's 10% of that group. So, and 7% are in school. Well, you know what? Don't get a college degree, drop out and go pick our food. Okay. And then finally, 8%, there's only really 8% of that 26 million, right? So about just 2 million of people who are either not able to find work or have some disability or have retired before the age of 64. So what I think she's actually saying, and I want you to listen to her again. She's basically saying, don't work at Walmart. Don't work, don't help your kids at home. Come on out to the fields. This is not a plan. So instead of amnesty, which would make a lot of sense, and a path toward a job better than working in a farm, but a path toward a job that doesn't, you cannot work bending over in a field and doing that kind of agricultural labor forever anyway. But let's listen to her again. The math ain't mathing.
Score enough. There will be no amnesty. The mass deportations continue, but in a strategic way, and we move the workforce towards automation and 100% American participation, which again, with 34 million people, able-bodied adults on Medicaid, we should be able to do that fairly quickly.
Again, the math ain't mathing. And before we go, my friends, I want to thank our mod squad, which I think you already know includes Jason and Deb, but we have a new addition to the mod squad. Let's give a shout out to AJ. Thank you for joining us. This is your first day with the wrench. I feel so fortunate to have so many amazing folks. Even if they have, screen names like AJ Vintage does, I really know that she is a real person and an incredibly talented one, just like Deb and Jason. So welcome aboard. And now it is time for Crazy Town. Oh my God, here we go. I got a double dose of Crazy Town for you. First, the obvious. We're going to show you Alex Jones crying. And if you want to cover your ears, it's okay. It's crazy that I'm actually showing you Alex Jones and wondering whether a stop clock can be right twice a day. Here we go.
Throw up, actually. And this only happens every few years when something really, really bad happens or something. I mean, I'm physically gonna puke probably right now. My mouth is watering right now. It's because I have integrity. And, I just really need the Trump administration to succeed and to save this country, and they're doing so much good. And then for them to do something like this tears my guts out.
Ooh, let's do our second dose of Crazy Town, second helping. Okay. This is, I shouldn't laugh about it, but it is crazy, crazy, crazy. I don't know if you heard, but over on Twitter, or the website formerly known as Twitter, which we've always said was a Nazi cesspool, over there, Elon Musk, who runs the joint, has some AI bot called Grok. And if you know, it's Grok. If you know the purpose of what Grok was, it was for if people would see something. Well, he thought it was like a democratic process for figuring out if something was true or not. He supposedly wanted to be this libertarian. Anyone could post anything on Twitter or X. And if you didn't like it, then you would complain and fact check it, like in the comments below. And then Grok, this bot heard enough of complaints or whatever, it would put a statement below, right, saying this isn't true. And what was really funny is Grok at one point a few weeks ago was claiming that Elon Musk was making stuff up. And at one point, Musk was really angry because he thought his bot was programmed to be too woke. And so something happened. And yesterday, the bot Grok went full Nazi. I am not kidding you. And so I need to share this screen with you. And I'm going to share this article from The Guardian, because I think this one's pretty good at explaining this. Okay, so I think you can see this with me. And here we go. Musk's AI firm forced to delete posts praising Hitler from Grok chatbot. I kid you not. this article I will continue to read. Elon Musk's artificial intelligence firm, XAI, has deleted inappropriate, he put in quotes, posts on X after the company's chatbot, Grok, began praising Adolf Hitler, referring to itself as Micha Hitler, and making anti-Semitic comments in response to user queries. In some now deleted posts, it referred to a person with a common Jewish surname as someone who was, quote, celebrating the tragic deaths of white kids, end quote, in the Texas floods as, quote, future fascists, end quote. Quote, classic case of hate dressed as activism. And that surname every damn time, as they say, end quote, the chatbot commented. In another post, it said, Hitler would have called it out and crushed it. The Guardian has been unable to confirm if the account that was being referred to belonged to a real person or not, and media reports suggest it has now been deleted. In other posts, it referred to itself as Micha Hitler. Quote, the white man stands for innovation, grit, and not bending to PC nonsense, end quote, Grok said in a subsequent post. After users began pointing out the responses, Grok deleted some of the posts and restricted the chatbot to generating images rather than text replies. Quote, we are aware of recent posts made by Grok and are actively working to remove the inappropriate posts since being made aware of the content. Anyway, by the way, I'm only reading you the tip of the iceberg. You cannot imagine what was going on over there on Twitter or X. And here's a moment where I want to let you know, I finally did leave that website. My account name is up there. There are no posts or replies of mine, just like a blue sky up there. And I abandoned it. I think it was over a year ago. Or maybe it was, I don't know if it was fall of 2023 or fall of 2024. I'm not sure when. But I am disappointed that friends of mine still maintain accounts there and post regularly. People I admire. And I understand what their thinking is. They claim, why abandon the spot? We can put good information out there. And I really, I don't think that's why. I think they stay there because some of them have 1 million followers and they don't have as many on Blue Sky. And they actually believe that they're generating traffic to the things that they're selling you, whether it is drawing you to view them on YouTube or elsewhere. But the bottom line, as our friend Ben Collins, who we had on here, also known as Tim Onion, who runs The Onion, mentioned, don't believe, first of all, get out of that Nazi cesspool. 2, don't actually believe their numbers. And 3, the data shows, Tim showed this, they know what the real traffic is. And the real traffic comes from Blue Sky. So for people who don't care and want to keep, and they, by the way, they've monetized their Twitter accounts too. They're making money off these accounts that spews anti-Semitic and racist garbage. I think they need to leave there. And these are friends of mine. I love you guys if you're listening, but step up and get off X. Stop posting there. Stop driving traffic there, because the reason this is really bad is a lot of journalists still go on X to get the pulse, and it is biasing them. They think now, it's like an Overton window. They now think that the new norm in the center is anti-Semitism and racism. That's why you're seeing these really racist articles crop up in the New York Times where they're, I can't even, where they are quoting people who put forward debunked and incorrect race science in order to attack candidates for office. And this is happening. And if you are on X, you are participating in that. Furthermore, there is this propaganda around claiming Blue Sky is woke and it doesn't allow diversity of thought. And the more people who leave X right now and come over to places like Blue Sky, the more that will end and the more the journalists will stop going over there. When you put your content there, you are supporting Elon Musk and this American Nazi party that is developing. With that, I bid you guys adieu. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show. Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show.